title of today's episode, How Alcohol is Destroying Your Health, Business, and Family Life. How alcohol is destroying your health, business, and family life. Even when we don't see it sometimes. You know, maybe we feel like we have it all together. We haven't lost a job. We don't have multiple DUIs. We're still married. You know, our relationships are, they're okay. But we don't see those effects sometimes when we're in the midst of it. And a lot of the time before it's too late, unfortunately. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and how alcohol is destroying your health, your business, and your family life. And we're going to dive into this topic that affects not just you, not just me, but millions of people worldwide. But it's not always discussed openly. And alcohol it's been a part of the human culture for a long time, for centuries. Whether it's just a casual drink with some friends, maybe a glass of wine at dinner, or on the weekend, maybe you go a little overboard and you party hardy. Party. Alcohol seems like a harmless way to unwind, to relax, to escape. But what happens when that harmless drink starts to become an issue and you start to see negative impacts on your health, your relationships, your work, your business? Like, what do you do then? And when does alcohol cross the line from being a social tool to more of an issue, more of an addiction, more of an everyday or every weekend type of thing? I think that's what a lot of people don't seem to grasp sometimes. And I don't mean that in like a sarcastic way or anything like I'm any smarter, but I know in the midst of it, for me, I didn't see it at the time, how it was having I didn't see the long-term effects, I guess is what I'm getting at when you're in the middle of it. And it's very easy to do. So how do you know when that is? So we're going to talk a little bit about all of that today. We're going to explore some of these questions. We're going to look at some of the effects, the negative effects that alcohol has on self, on family, on business. And let's kind of rethink how we look at this and take a look at some of these habits. And hopefully for someone out there listening, we're talking about this and we can get some answers. We can get some insight before it's too late. Okay, so one more time too. I want to plug the podcast again, the website. I mean, if you want more resources, if you want one-on-one coaching, if you want to join our free Sober Guy men's community, the Victory Circle. We also have our 30 podcasts in 30 days, the Quit Drinking 30-Day Challenge. All of that and more podcasts, everything. You can find all that by going to thatsoberguy.com. Okay. So let's talk about the first part of this. I think I put together 5 parts here. So we're gonna break into part 1 first, obviously, because we're gonna go in order. And that is the hidden toll on your health. The hidden toll on your health. So when we think of alcohol, most people associate it with a bit of fun. Maybe we're at a party, maybe we're at a game, maybe it's just a time to relax and escape. Beneath the surface, though, drinking habits, habitually, alcohol can really wreak havoc on your body. And so let's start with the physical effects first. And I think we're gonna work our way into the emotional and even a bit of the spiritual as well. Okay, so alcohol is a toxin. Let's just start there. Your body does its best to break the toxin down, but over time, excessive drinking leads to liver damage, increased blood pressure, even a weakened immune system. So you might feel great after a drink or two. And you know, for a short period of time, that can work as like I said before, it's a tool in a sense, or I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but I know I've said that before on many podcasts, that alcohol is just the tool that we use. It's like any tool. If you were building a house, you're going to have a hammer. You're going to have, some nails, some other material. Those are tools. Alcohol is also a tool in a different sense because we use it to escape. We use it for anxiety. We use it for maybe we hate dancing, but we need to dance at a party. And so we're going to get, intoxicated to loosen up a little bit. It's a social lubricant. And many times, oh, I hate that word. You said lubricant. Oh man, the 15-year-old Beavis and Butthead is coming out in me. Okay. Anyways, where was I? Okay. So we were saying poison. That's right. Poison. Your body takes in this poison. It's a toxin. Okay. And over a regular time, as you continue to do that, it can really lead to a lot of damage in your body physically. So some of those health risks include cirrhosis of the liver, cardiovascular problems, digestive issues, and even an increased risk of certain cancers. So your body becomes drained of essential nutrients and your energy levels drop. So it's like, think about this. It's not a shocker that when someone who's drinking regularly might start feeling lethargic, they feel unmotivated, they're out of shape, they're not themselves, they're slow, they're not sharp, they're not on point. Okay. And so with that, that's some of the physical stuff. We can't ignore the mental stuff as well. Like alcohol can take a huge toll on someone's mental health over a period of time. Alcohol is a depressant, which means it slows down the central nervous system. And it also can contribute to feelings of anxiety, feelings of depression, just not feeling good, not feeling motivated. So while alcohol, maybe, a few drinks seems like a way to relieve stress, the reality of it is over time, it's going to lead to deeper, more complex physical and emotional struggles. And on the spiritual side of this as well, and I'm going to speak a little bit from personal experience on this one. I always felt as I continued to drink over the years that I was becoming further separated from my true self, further separated from my spirit, which means I was becoming further separated from God. And that is not a good place to be. I want to be connected spiritually to self, and I want to try my best to walk in the spirit and separate myself from the world. I have to live in this world, but I'm not of this world as a Christian. And that is a really difficult thing to do when you're habitually drinking and escaping, because your spiritual growth is stunted, and even your mental growth to a lot of extent too. And so I was completely lost in that connection spiritually. And, for those of you who've maybe been in rooms or different meetings, you hear like this is a spiritual sickness. And I do definitely believe there's something to that. And so the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual, man, that is taking a huge toll on somebody, on their overall health and wellness. Okay, so let's go to number 2, how alcohol is destroying your health, business, and family life. Alcohol's impact on business performance. So let's get into that a little bit. Let's talk about how alcohol may affect your career. Like many people don't realize just how much drinking can drain their productivity, their decision-making ability, their attitude, and their overall performance at work. And I had this happen to me firsthand. I'll sum it up quick. I think I've told this story before, but I'll make it quick. Basically, towards the end of my drinking, maybe in that last year, my performance at work was terrible. I could not show up sober. I had to be intoxicated just to go to work. I couldn't even manage it. And it wasn't any outer circumstances. I was sure blaming it on the outer circumstances of, I hate my job. It's a night shift. It's super, like, it's boring. It's the same thing over and over. When am I going to get out of this? All that stuff, a lot of excuses, a lot of blaming. And the only thing at that time that seemed like it made it feel better was to escape. So it was the art of escapism. And so my performance at work, even though I was doing my job, I don't think as far as job duties, I wasn't like close to getting fired. Like I wasn't just going and taking a nap in the break room or in the closet or anything like that. So I was still trying to like do my job, but my attitude, I think, was the biggest thing. And my morale and my positivity and my energy was so low. And it was just not a fun place to be in at that time, in my mind, in that environment. And it was because of my, my own choices, obviously, but it had a huge impact on my performance. And it took me a while, going to finally make some changes and get sober. And I had to come back to that job while I was sober, and trying to stay sober and going to meetings and doing the same work. But what was different is that I had taken the alcohol out of the equation, and it began to change my attitude on everything. I began to see my true self. I began to connect again to the true spirit. And so that was a huge step in the right direction. So let's talk about this. Imagine you're working on a big project at the office, right? And the night before, or maybe it's a huge project on a construction site and you're leading the crew up. Okay. So you decide the night before, maybe you have a big meeting the next day and there's something going down, or there's a big part of the job. Maybe you're pouring concrete. I don't know, whatever it is, right? Big day the next day. And you decide, man, it's a Thursday, maybe it's a Thursday night. And you're like, shoot, man, it's Thirsty Thursday. let's go grab a burger, something to eat at, the spot we go to, and we'll have a beer or two. You're like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. And so you decide to do that and you go out with friends, and then all of a sudden 1 beer, 2 beers, 2 turns to 4. And before you know it, you're 6, 7, 8 drinks in, and you haven't eaten a lot of food, and you stay out later than you want. You go home, your wife's upset with you. And not only that, you miss tucking your kids in, you didn't spend that quality time. You weren't present. And then now you wake up and you feel sluggish. You feel hungover. You feel a little bit guilty. You feel a little bit not like yourself. You got a little bit of anxiety. All of it's starting to come together. That affects your focus, and it affects your ability to think clearly. It affects your decision making. And you might not be able to complete those tasks throughout the day as efficiently, or communicate with your team or your crew or whatever that looks like in the way that you normally would, had you not had that night before and that poison in your body affecting so many different aspects of it, physically, emotionally, spiritually, even though it doesn't seem like it at the time. Now compound that, overdoing that over and over and over weeks, months, and years, it can become a regular cycle, and it's only a matter of time before the overall performance begins to suffer. And not only that, people begin to see, and they can tell, man, it's not showing up on time, or just wasn't on point, or they messed this up, or didn't listen here. So not only does drinking alcohol impact your cognitive abilities, but it can also alter your emotional state as well. So it lowers your inhibitions. It might make you a little bit more prone to anger or outbursts or poor judgment calls, like driving while you're intoxicated. Oh man, I've only had a couple. I'll be good. Yeah, you might be kind of good, but if you got pulled over, you're going to jail because you think you're good. And then what does that do? It costs $10,000. I don't even know what it is for a DUI these days. I'm sure it's at least 10 grand though, by the time you add up the court fees and costs of classes and your license is suspended, which is a pain in the butt. Like, good Lord. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to have to deal with on top of all the other things life throws at us. So it in a business environment, those decisions, those outbursts, the poor judgment, the lack of attentiveness, man, dude, those things can have serious consequences on your business or your team or the work that you're doing. Okay. And then let's kind of sum it up before we move on to number 3 with this, the professional relationships. Alcohol can lead to poor social interactions, maybe misunderstandings. Maybe you're a little bit too intoxicated at the work function and you say some things or do some things that, man, it starts some crap, like with a client or with one of your coworkers or one of your managers or one of your team members or one of your employees. Like if you're known as the person who just can't say no to the drink and you literally don't have a control over it, which can be difficult for a lot of people to do. Man, like that's going to have a huge impact on your reputation. If you're showing up late, you're showing up hungover. And if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, or even if you're a boss or a leader of a crew or a team, it's also going to make people lose respect for you. I've talked to people sometimes in different environments, and they're intoxicated trying to like sell their business. Like that's the last person I'm going to go to more than likely, just because like it's you build this kind of wall, and there's a lack of respect and trust there, unfortunately. And you can usually tell. And I want to be clear too. I'm not saying that there's not plenty of business owners and entrepreneurs out there who can control and, don't have an issue with their drinking. They can have a beer once a month, or, once every now and again at a party or a glass of wine or something. It's not an issue. So I'm not talking to those people. That's all good. But I'm talking to the folks who can't do that and who don't see that. They don't see that they can't do that because it's just maybe comparing to the next guy, or you don't have 3 DUIs, or like I said, you still haven't lost the relationship or the job or whatever. Your credibility and your reliability and your, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess it's credibility, and your, the respect that people have for you is vital for your career growth, for your business growth. And if people start to see through that and start to see you're not taking care of business and alcohol is an issue, and trust me, they will see it, all that can really tend to go downhill fast. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, the destructive effect on family life. Perhaps, my friend, what say you? Perhaps, I don't know why I said that. Perhaps the most heartbreaking impact. But the most heartbreaking impact of alcohol is it's got to be the family, how it affects the family life. I come from a family who had an issue with alcohol growing up. And unfortunately, it had a lot of effects on our family life at home. And I know, both my parents loved me and my sister. They did the best they could, but unfortunately at that time, alcohol was a huge player in our household, and it had so many negative effects on our family. And we see it throughout families all over. You see it, you hear it, and it can destroy relationships. It can destroy families, and it causes tension and unpredictability. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. You never know. You're constantly having to walk on eggshells. That's not a place that you want to be, especially if you have kids. So if you're someone who drinks regularly, or if maybe it's even worse than that, and it is like an issue, it's becoming an issue. You're starting to see some of the things that we're talking about. The people closest to you, your wife, your kids, your parents, your brothers, your sisters, people will notice. And the drinking can and eventually will lead to an emotional distance. It can lead to trust issues. It can lead to conflicts within the family and even the larger family. If you're intoxicated or hungover most of the time or all the time, anyone sees you, you're always drinking. You're always anything we do, it's always has to revolve around drinking. It's really hard to be present for your loved ones. Your communication suffers. You miss out on important moments because you're not in the moment. You're just out there. And whether that's being, there for your kids' sports, or they have a function going on at school, or it's your wife, you're supporting her in something that you're doing, something that she's doing. Those types of things will suffer over time. And even if you're trying to do the best you can, it's difficult to hold true to that over time. And missing out on those important moments suck too. They only come once. And it's a sad thing when we hear about this kind of stuff in families. And unfortunately, alcohol is a huge issue in so many families all over the place. And in some cases, it can even become um, like a vehicle for aggression or emotional type of outburst, anger, domestic violence. Man, like, so domestic violence and alcohol abuse are often linked. So when you hear about domestic violence cases, man, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but a lot of the time, more than often, it has something to do, there's alcohol involved in that situation. And it's not pretty and it's not fun. And kids don't forget, and children of alcoholic parents also can grow up and have, they remember, they don't forget these things. They have crap they got to deal with now, and studies show that they're at a higher risk for developing alcohol problems themselves later in life. And I'll tell you firsthand, I'm an example of that. Saw it growing up. We had issues in the house. I told myself I was never going to drink or try any drugs or do any drugs or do any of that stuff. And, by 14, 15, I was already experimenting and going down that path. And I'm not blaming anybody in particular. I'm just saying that is very common. It's very, very common. And then if you couple that, because I don't think that's the only case too. It's not just like all the family's fault or the parents' fault or whatever, that the child went down that path. I think if you take that and then you combine that with like adolescence and puberty and trying to become like a young adult, and the peer pressure and the media and the music and all those things combined, if you have somebody who doesn't have a firm, solid foundation as a young person, the odds are they're going to go down that path at some point, or at least they're going to experiment. And a lot of the time that leads to, bigger and worse off things down the road. And so this is a huge issue inside the family. It's so sad. So it's definitely something to kind of think about, and just know that the decisions we make now have effects on not only ourselves, but our family for a long, long time. And that's why people say, what's the one thing you're most proud of about, being sober, or what, quitting, or your life now, or whatever. And one of the things I always think about is, like, I got to break that generational curse, for my kids. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to be faced with their own challenges and their own decisions that they're going to have to make one day. I actually just had a chat with my daughter recently, just about, she's in high school now. And I kind of told her, I was asking her about, do people drink now? Like, what does that look like? And, I told her, like, you're going to be faced with your own decision. I hope you don't ever drink. No one's ever said my habitual drinking habits have really improved my life. I've never heard it. And there's no good in it. But if you do get to a point, and when you do, you're going to be tested. Someone's, hey, drink this or try this or whatever. Like, think about that, because, those decisions, man, they're tough ones when you're young. And so I basically, my wife and I want to give her and my son the best chance possible, and give them the best foundation possible to make those decisions. Doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean necessarily that they're never going to drink or try anything. Like, I pray that's the case, but odds are they're going to be faced with that decision at some point in their young life. And so hopefully they have the tools, they have the support, they have the example that I've been able to kind of lead and usher into our family now, where they are going to think twice about that, or they're at least going to be aware of it, and they're going to talk to us about it. So let's move on to number 4. Alcohol addiction, the silent destroyer of potential. Man, that's so true. Here's kind of where this gets tricky, though. It's easy to think that drinking is just part of life, because there's such a normalcy bias with drinking. Something everyone does. They do it at parties and games and funerals and after work and at work sometimes, or at lunch. And, for some, though, that really evolves into, or from like this occasional drink into a full-blown addiction, an alcohol addiction, an escape addiction, a numbing addiction. And that's a whole different ballgame that we're talking about once you kind of cross that line. Like, even just the occasional drinker can still have some of the effects we're talking about too. I want to mention that. Just because you're not a full blown, alcoholic, or, you're not fully addicted, or you think that it's not, like, you can still suffer some of these consequences of just from, occasional drinking. And that's why I always bring it back to that. Like, I was going to say, I haven't heard anybody say my habitual drinking habits have really improved my life. Although I do post that sometimes on certain posts on Instagram. And I have had people argue back and say, well, actually I do. I've met a lot of friends at the bar. And I just I kind of laugh about it. Well, that's awesome, dude. Good for you. Hope that's true. What I want to respond is, are those friends or are they drinking buddies? Because if I had to put money on it, I'd say they're drinking buddies. But I will stand true to that. I still don't believe anyone genuinely, truly would say my habitual drinking habits have really improved my life. And so even from the stance of, I just have a few beers over time, that can be an issue too. And it could lead to different things. When you're addicted to alcohol, when it is a habitual thing, your body and man, just as important, if not more, your mind, they become reliant on it. Your personal, your professional, your family life it can start to unravel as your priorities shift. Instead of chasing your dreams or investing in the moment and being in those relationships, that time with your kids, you're chasing that next escape, that next drink, that next high, that next moment to withdraw and be, out of the present, because it's a regular thing. And that's what you become dependent on. You don't have healthy ways to deal with life on life's terms, which is really difficult. Life on life's terms is hard to do. There's a lot of acceptance there and work that needs to be done. And alcohol just doesn't help. This is where any potential motivation, dreams. I remember sitting in my garage, just dreaming about all the things I wanted to do. Just keep drinking, keep smoking and drinking it all away with no plan, no ambition, no motivation, just a bunch of empty dreams and a couple empty bottles at the end of the day. Man, it's no way to live. It prevented me from growing, from learning, from really achieving the things that I thought I wanted to do. I just thought I'm just going to party. I'm going to live forever. And it was a terrible cycle, and it was hard to break, but it wasn't impossible to break. So here's the good news. It can be fixed. It can be changed. You can change. So if it's you struggling, or if you're listening to this, maybe it's someone that someone that you love, just know there's always hope. Don't ever give up hope. It's essential to recognize that as there are some things that, are difficult, extremely difficult, but man, anything is possible with God, number one. But the longer you ignore it, the longer you put it off, like there's no better day than today. Start today. Why are we going to wait till tomorrow? Oh, I'll do it Monday. Why? Start today. Stop today. Or at least sit down and write out a plan. What is your plan? Write out a couple affirmations. I can quit drinking. I will change my life. I will become a better father. I will become a better husband. I am a good man. Those types of things are what help us, those exercises, those thoughts, being able to do that. And we can't do those type of things if we're intoxicated all the time. All right, last one. Number 5, breaking free from alcohol. So what are we going to do about all this, right? We recognize that change is possible. We just talked about that. We know that it's possible. Is it easy? No. Otherwise, everyone would do it. A lot of people are doing it, a lot more than used to, which is awesome. But whether maybe you're just drinking a little bit too much and you just kind of want to see what life is like without alcohol in it. Maybe you want to go 30, 60, 90 days. You just want to go, man, I just want to cleanse and just kind of reevaluate my life. I don't see any positive benefits that alcohol is giving me or my family or my work or my business. Change is possible. So if that's you, you have to step back and evaluate all that, number one, and you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest. You have to look at how it is affecting your life. Make a list. Make a list of the good things alcohol is providing for you by drinking and the bad things. Okay. Do both of those and be honest. Be honest. And if you have somebody to share those with, share them with somebody. I think a good question to ask yourself, this is one thing I think is really important too, because I say this a lot. I didn't have as much of a drinking problem as I have the need to escape problem, if that makes sense. So a good question to ask yourself is, are you using alcohol to escape? Are you missing out on opportunities because of it? Are you neglecting people who matter most to you? Are you neglecting your family, your kids? Are you just, maybe you're not neglecting them financially. So you're like, oh yeah, it's all good, but you're neglecting them emotionally and spiritually and from a leader perspective. If that's you, if any of this speaks to you, man, there's hope out there. Stay the course. We have lots of resources at thatsoberguy.com. And there's so many other resources out there too. Your local church, there's a lot of 12-step meetings all over the place, online and in person. I would recommend in person. Man, like your potential is limitless. Like God sees you one way, and all it takes is for you to acknowledge that and accept that and start to see yourself in that light. Start to see yourself as your true self. And you can do that by finding freedom from alcohol, from substances, from anything that can tend to keep us in bondage, keep us in chains, and just feeling like we're locked up and we're not our true self. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Share the podcast with a friend. Join the Victory Circle, our free Sober Guy men's community. Go to thatsoberguy.com for more resources. Appreciate you tuning in. Keep your blood clean.